They want you angry. Because the moment you're angry, you're no longer calculating. You stop seeing clearly. You stop listening. You give them everything they need. Your attention, your fears, your next move. Machiavelli didn't fear the angry man, he manipulated him. Because anger is not strength, it's exposure. When you lose your temper, you lose your mask. And once you've done that, they own you. In a world where power favors silence, restraint is the deadliest weapon of all. You don't need to raise your voice to destroy someone. You just need to stop letting them know what gets to you. Anger feels righteous. It rushes in with heat, with purpose, with the illusion of clarity. But Machiavelli knew it was the emotion most likely to be used against you, because anger makes you readable, and what's readable is controllable. Every outburst gives your enemy a script: what you care about, what hurts you, what buttons to press next time. You think you're defending yourself, but you're actually revealing your most vulnerable data, your emotional blueprint. The moment you shout, you hand them the map. Anger demands to be seen, to be heard, to be unleashed. But power doesn't scream. Power doesn't tremble. Power waits. And when your enemy is waiting silent, composed, calculating, your rage makes you dance exactly how they want. Machiavelli didn't just write about deception and cruelty. He wrote about restraint. He warned against becoming predictable, because the predictable man can be broken with precision. Even a child can provoke a king, if that king has no control. And in today's world, people provoke professionally. On social media, in politics, in boardrooms and bedrooms, they say things not because they believe them, but because they want you to lose your mind. Because once you do, you stop being a threat. You become a puppet. That's why those who rule from behind the curtain rarely raise their voice. The colder they remain, the more unnerving they become. A man who doesn't react is harder to defeat. You can't read him, so you can't corner him. You can't corner him, so you fear him. And that fear is more useful than any rage could ever be. The truth is, anger feels like a weapon, but it's a flare. It shows exactly where you are in the dark and who's aiming at you. They don't want a conversation. They want a reaction. The insult wasn't careless, it was chosen. The timing wasn't random, it was tested. People who seek power without earning it often learn to provoke instead. It's faster, cleaner, more efficient. They know if they can't outthink you, they can at least destabilize you. So they study what makes you flinch. They bring up your failures. They twist your words. They interrupt you mid-thought, not to debate, but to trigger. Because the moment you react, the moment your voice rises, your pulse quickens, your face tightens, you become a spectacle. And Machiavelli knew the power of controlling that spectacle. The prince who keeps his composure gains the crowd, but the one who lashes out gives it away. Those who provoke aren't aiming for truth. They're aiming for your emotional resources, your calm, your timing, your perception gone in a flash of anger. They want you so furious that you forget the plan, so loud that no one hears your point, so defensive that you look guilty. And the cruelest part? It works, because anger bypasses strategy. You can't plot when your heart is pounding in your ears. You can't adapt when your ego is bleeding. That's why they whisper lies in front of an audience. That's why they frame compliments as condescension. That's why they push your boundaries in public, not to win, but to make you break. And once you break, they don't even need to keep fighting. They'll just say, "See? Look how unstable you are." Your explosion becomes their evidence. Your reaction becomes their reputation. It's not a debate. It's a trap. And Machiavelli warned, never let your enemy define the battlefield. If they want you angry, stay cold. If they push, lean back. If they yell, smile. It's not weakness, it's warfare. And the one who maintains control of their face, their tone, their body, wins. The one who doesn't rise to bait becomes unbreakable. Because, in the game of power, the one who reacts last often walks away with everything. Anger is never random. It's precision engineered by those who know how your mind works better than you do. The ones who provoke you are not always obvious. Sometimes they're the people closest to you, the ones who know what words to use, what tone to take, what silence will stretch longest. They don't need to strike hard. They only need to strike exactly. And what they're aiming at is not your body, but your psychology. They want to pull something ancient from you, a wound, a memory, a fear, because if they can get you to react, they own the moment. The psychology of provocation is built on simple truths. People want to feel respected, understood, safe, superior, and the one who violates those wants at just the right time will control your behavior without laying a finger. They'll make a joke at your expense in front of people you admire. They'll pretend not to notice your effort. They'll ask a question they already know the answer to just to watch you squirm. And if you react, they win. Because they've dragged you into a space where you're no longer strategic, you're emotional. You're no longer reading the room, you're trying to survive it. And Machiavelli knew that this is where most power is lost, not on battlefields, but in quiet moments of emotional compromise. The manipulator never yells. They don't need to. They provoke calmly, with a shrug, with a raised eyebrow, with a smirk that tells you you're already beneath me. And you, if you are not trained to see the setup, will respond just the way they want. You'll explain too much. You'll defend something that didn't need defending. You'll try to prove yourself in front of someone who was never listening. This is how they use your psychology against you. They make you forget the room, forget the timeline, forget the stakes, all so you can win a battle they created just to distract you. And while you're busy reacting, they're moving forward, gathering support, rewriting the story, painting you as the unhinged one while they play the calm observer. That's why the best response to provocation is not cleverness, it's detachment. It's recognizing the game before you're in it. The most dangerous person is not the one who never feels anger. It's the one who knows exactly when not to show it. Because once you stop giving people emotional access, you become invisible to their manipulation. And Machiavelli would call that the highest form of control. Anger promises clarity. It tells you you're right, they're wrong, and justice is on your side. But that's the trap. Because in your most explosive moments, you're not showing them who they are, you're showing them exactly who you are. Your triggers, your wounds, your insecurities. The things you pretend don't matter suddenly flood your face, your voice, your body. And once that happens, the person watching you learns everything they need to know. Machiavelli would have smiled at that. Because he knew anger isn't an attack, it's a mirror. It reflects the shape of your mind, the fault lines in your story, the cracks you've worked hard to hide. The louder you are, the clearer they see you. And the clearer they see you, the more predictable you become. You think you're fighting back, but you're not. You're handing them the blueprint to break you again, and worse, to time it better next time. And they will. Because anger makes you repetitive. You respond the same way every time, and eventually they learn the pattern. This is how manipulators get smarter while you get louder. They sharpen their knives while you sharpen your voice. But what if you didn't react? What if you let the insult hang in the air and refuse to carry it? What if you let their attempt to control you fall flat, not because you're weak, but because you're untouchable? That's what Machiavellian power looks like. It's not silence from fear, it's silence as dominance. Stillness that says, I'm not going to give you what you want, even if you scream for it. And this drives people mad. Because when you don't respond, they are forced to face the silence they can't control. Your anger would have been comforting, familiar, easy to work with. But your restraint? That's terrifying, because it means you're thinking. And people don't fear anger the way they fear calculation. They don't fear heat, they fear precision. And when you give them neither, they start to lose their grip, not just on you, but on their version of the story. So remember this, your anger might feel powerful, but your enemy is learning from it. Watching you explode teaches them where to cut next. But when you stop reacting, when you let the mirror reflect nothing but calm, that's when they start to panic, because now they don't know who they're dealing with, and that's exactly where you want them. Machiavelli never said anger was useless. He said it was dangerous when misused, and fatal when visible. A ruler, he warned, must know when to show emotion and when to bury it beneath absolute stillness. This was the rule of strategic coldness, because the moment you let anger guide your decisions, you forfeit power. But when you master it, when you hold it just beneath the skin without letting it escape, you become unpredictable. And unpredictability is terrifying. Most people use anger as release. They shout, they curse, they throw their truth at the wall and call it honesty. But power doesn't care about honesty. Power only cares about perception. And the man who can smile while bleeding is more dangerous than the man who screams from a paper cut. Strategic coldness is not emotional suppression, it's emotional redirection. It's taking everything you want to say, everything you want to do, and channeling it into timing, observation, patience. While they expect you to strike, you study. While they wait for your explosion, you prepare your exile. And by the time they realize you didn't react, they've already lost. Because your silence wasn't surrender. It was a calculation, a delay, a choice. Machiavelli advised rulers to appear virtuous, to play calm, to mimic mercy. Not because he believed in kindness, but because he believed in masks. And nothing is more terrifying than a mask that doesn't blink. When you remain cold in the face of insult, people start to question their tactics. When you don't bite the bait, they wonder if you saw through the trap. When you smile after betrayal, they fear what's coming next. That fear is currency. That silence is control. Because the goal is not to be numb, it's to be unreadable. The truly powerful don't eliminate anger. They weaponize its timing. They wait until the room is quiet, until no one is watching, until the enemy thinks it's over. Then they move. No warning, no apology, no explanation, because rage that waits becomes something else entirely. It becomes fate. So if you're burning, don't let the flames rise where they can be seen. Let them heat your mind. Let them harden your instincts. Let them make your next move colder than anything they could have imagined. Strategic coldness is not cruelty, it's control. And Machiavelli would remind you, the strongest fire is the one that burns without smoke. They expect you to swing. They want the fire, the fists, the fury. That's the script they're prepared for. But when you don't play your role, when you freeze instead of flare, they lose their grip. This is where power lives, in stillness when provoked. It is not apathy. It's not weakness. It's a weapon they don't know how to counter. Because most people rely on rhythm, action and reaction, push and push back. But when you don't react, when you hold your breath instead of your ground, they're left punching water. Machiavelli understood this. He knew that people are addicted to control, and nothing disturbs them more than silence when they demand noise. That stillness is not passive, it's strategic. You are watching without blinking, absorbing without responding, calculating instead of crumbling. And that, to the manipulator, is unbearable. They don't just want to hurt you, they want to see that they hurt you. And when you give them nothing, no flinch, no twitch, no tremble, they start to question their aim. They start to question their power. And they should, because while they're trying to get a rise out of you, you're taking notes. You're memorizing their tactics, storing their tone, logging the pattern. Every time they strike, you collect. And the longer you remain unmoved, the more rattled they become. Because stillness creates space, and in that space, you regain control. You regain breath. You regain the upper hand. They thought they were playing chess, but now they're shouting into fog. And nothing makes a loud person more fragile than silence that doesn't break. People expect escalation, but you subtract. You step back. You vanish mid-conflict. Not because you lost, but because you refuse to play in public. Machiavelli knew the value of restraint, not for its own sake, but because it gave him the edge. Because when you don't give them the drama they want, they either self-destruct or they walk away thinking you're weaker than you are. And that's exactly what you want. The less they see, the less they prepare. The less they prepare, the more they bleed. So the next time they push, don't rise, don't pace, don't explain. Freeze. Let them reveal themselves while you disappear into strategy. Stillness is not retreat. It's the first move in a game they didn't know they started. And when the moment is right, you will not react. You will choose, and they will never see it coming. There is something unsettling about a person who smiles through an insult. Not the fake grin of someone too afraid to speak, but the quiet, amused curve of a mouth that says, "You think you've won." Machiavelli understood that composure isn't just protection, it's manipulation. A well-timed smile can feel like a slap. Because your enemy wants impact. They want to see the crack form in your expression, hear the anger in your voice, feel the heat rise off your skin. But when you give them amusement instead of outrage, you break their rhythm. The insult loses its sharpness, the attack falls flat. A smile tells them you are not where they think you are. You're not beneath them. You're above the game entirely. That smile disorients. It flips the script, and now they're the ones searching for footing. It isn't just that you didn't react, it's that you didn't need to, because your value isn't tied to their opinion. Their jab didn't land because it couldn't reach where you stand. That is psychological warfare, and Machiavelli would have called it elegant cruelty, not the kind that wounds openly, but the kind that makes your enemy question themselves. What did they miss? Why didn't you flinch? What do you know that they don't? It haunts them. The laugh you offer as they try to undermine you makes their weapon look small. Their attempt at dominance becomes pitiful because people don't fear rage. Rage is understandable, even justifiable. But indifference suggests they're not even a threat, and that is what breaks them. Smiling in the face of disrespect doesn't mean you accept it, it means you've already outgrown it. You see the tactic, the insecurity behind the words, the desperation beneath the insult. And instead of rising to defend your honor, you let them drown in their own attempt. Because real power doesn't need to argue. It doesn't need to explain or retaliate. It lets the other person show their hand while keeping its own hidden. The smile, when used correctly, becomes a mask, not to hide fear, but to reveal control. It is the mark of someone who knows they are untouchable, and that scares people more than anger ever could. So next time someone tries to provoke you, don't meet them with fire. Meet them with calm. Meet them with silence. Or, if you want to leave a mark they'll never forget, meet them with a smile. Because in that moment, they'll realize they've lost not just the fight, but the power to even touch you. They don't attack you randomly. They study you first. Not the person you pretend to be, but the one you try to hide. They watch how you react when someone ignores you. They test what happens when they take credit for your work. They notice which wounds you cover with laughter, which fears you disguise as confidence. And then, when the moment is right, they strike not to break your body, but to detonate your history. Because the most effective way to control someone is to trigger what they haven't healed. Machiavelli didn't just study politics. He studied people. He understood that the human mind is a pattern of unresolved experiences, and whoever understands those patterns controls the person. That's why some insults hurt more than they should. That's why one person can say something 1,000 strangers never could. It's not the words, it's the wound. And your enemies know this. They weaponize your past. They use your childhood, your shame, your broken trust as tools to provoke. Not to win an argument, but to make you forget who you are. To reduce you to your worst version. Because once you explode, once you become reactive, they don't even need to defeat you. You've already defeated yourself. This is not manipulation in the obvious sense. It's subtle. It comes dressed in questions that sound innocent, in comments that look like jokes, in concern that feels just a little too sharp. And if you're not aware of how your past is being used against you, you'll take the bait every time. You'll think they're just being rude, when in reality, they're fishing for access. You'll think they're just pushing your buttons, when in truth, they installed them. That's why knowing your emotional history isn't just self-awareness, it's armor. It protects you from being used by those who understand you better than you understand yourself. Machiavelli knew that to rule others, you must first know what rules them. And for most people, it's pain. Not present pain, but remembered pain. The kind that lives in silence. The kind that reacts before you have time to think. But here's the truth. Once you become aware of the patterns, the trigger loses its grip. You stop being the puppet. You start becoming the observer. And the next time someone tries to make you bleed with your own memory, you won't flinch. You'll recognize the tactic. You'll see the hand behind the move. And in that moment, you won't just be in control. You'll be untouchable. Most people think the opposite of explosive rage is calm. But Machiavelli knew better. The opposite of rage isn't calm, it's cold calculation. Silent rage is a different creature altogether. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't boil over in public. It doesn't break windows or slam doors. It waits. It watches. It stores every offense, every slight, every insult like a ledger. And when it finally moves, it moves without noise. Because silent rage isn't about release, it's about results. The loud ones want to be seen. The cold ones want to win. And in the world of power, winning matters more than being heard. This is why explosive rage is rarely feared. It's predictable. It flares up, it burns hot, and then it fades. People get used to it. They learn how to dance around it, how to provoke it, how to survive it. But the ones who never raise their voice, the ones who seem unaffected, unreadable, untouched by insult or betrayal, those are the ones you should fear. Because they are not reacting, they are studying. And when they act, it is not with emotion, it is with precision. Machiavelli understood the value of restraint not because he thought feelings were useless, but because he knew that showing them gave others the map to your weakness. Rage, in its raw form, gives away the strategy. It tells people where to poke, how deep to dig, when to twist the knife. But when your rage is hidden, when it burns beneath the surface without showing its face, no one can prepare for what's coming. You become a storm without warning, a consequence without a countdown. This kind of rage does not forgive, and it never begs to be understood. It is not interested in apologies. It is not looking for closure. It is a quiet decision made in the dark, carried out in silence. And by the time your enemy realizes what you've done, the damage is already written. People fear what they can't read. A cold face in the heat of conflict is more terrifying than 1,000 screams, because it suggests something deeper is unfolding, something they'll never be able to track. Silent rage is not about suppressing emotion. It's about refining it into something sharper than words. It is rage matured, rage with a memory and a purpose. And when wielded with patience, it becomes the most precise form of power. Machiavelli would have called it elegant cruelty, the kind that doesn't need a show, only a result. So let them think you're passive. Let them think you've moved on. Let them underestimate the quiet. Because while they're watching for your explosion, you're planning their erasure. When you deny someone your anger, you deny them their script. Most people aren't trying to destroy you, they're trying to perform with you. They expect their insult to trigger a line, their betrayal to cue a monologue, their disrespect to ignite a scene. But when you give them nothing, when you don't raise your voice, don't flinch, don't feed the fire, they panic. Because now they don't know the role you're playing. And worse, they don't know what scene they're in anymore. Machiavelli understood that unpredictability is power, not chaos, not recklessness. True unpredictability is composed, silent, intentional. It is the refusal to do what they expect at the moment they expect it, because people prepare for your rage. They know how to manage it. They can laugh it off, spin it, use it to make you look unstable. But stillness, that makes them feel naked. When you never react, they start reacting for you. They replay the moment. They overanalyze your silence. They ask others what they think you meant. Their own guilt becomes a theatre. And while they perform, you vanish behind the curtain, watching it all unfold. The more you say nothing, the more they say everything. That's the trick Machiavellian minds understand. Your silence becomes a spotlight. It reveals who they are while keeping you hidden. You don't need to accuse. You don't need to explain. Their own conscience will do the talking for you. And if they have no conscience, your silence will still do something worse. It will bore them. And people who seek control thrive on attention. The moment they feel invisible, they begin to unravel. Because you weren't supposed to be quiet. You were supposed to fight, cry, chase, beg, plead. But instead, you disappeared into indifference. And that makes them wonder what you're planning. Or worse, if you've moved on. Because nothing scares the manipulator more than losing access to your emotional world. They don't want peace. They want control. And peace can't be controlled. So they push harder, they act louder. And the more they do, the more exposed they become. All because you didn't give them what they came for. That's how you win without fighting. That's how you destroy someone without a single raised voice. You leave them to wrestle with your absence. Let them fight the silence. Let them chase the reaction you never gave. Because in that quiet, their power withers and yours begins. When you're angry, you think you're being honest. You think you're showing strength. But what you're actually doing is giving a free tour of your mind. Every flare of emotion, every sarcastic jab, every twitch in your voice is a breadcrumb. And the people who understand power, the ones who move in silence and study in shadows, they follow those breadcrumbs all the way to your core. Machiavelli knew that a man who reacts quickly is not dangerous, he's decipherable. Anger makes you easy to read. And when you're easy to read, you're easy to trap. Because you only have one speed, one direction, one predictable pattern of defense. It's not that you're wrong to feel anger. It's that when you show it, you shrink. You become simpler. Your decisions lose layers. Your presence loses mystery. And mystery is power. People fear what they can't define, but they'll never fear you if they know how you work. If they can push you into an argument every time they mention your past. If they can make you spiral just by withholding validation. If they can see the exact moment your patience breaks and your pride takes over, then they already own the outcome. Because you don't need chains to be controlled. You just need habits they can count on. And anger, when left unchecked, becomes a habit. One that speaks louder than your logic. One that tells your enemies when to strike. One that gives them the advantage before the conversation even begins. That's why the most dangerous people in any room aren't the ones with sharp tongues or loud tempers. They're the ones who never blink. The ones who say little, listen long, and let you reveal yourself while they remain unreadable. Because what can't be read can't be mapped. What can't be mapped can't be outmaneuvered. Machiavelli didn't advocate for coldness to seem impressive. He advocated for it to stay uncatchable. And in a world where power is often perception, the person who controls how they are perceived holds the knife without drawing it. So if you want to be feared, don't explode. Withhold. If you want to be respected, don't over-explain. Pause. And if you want to be remembered, don't show them your worst moment. Show them nothing. That's what makes them obsessed. That's what keeps them guessing. Because when you stop being easy to read, you start becoming dangerous. And there is nothing more powerful than a mind no one can predict. When someone shows you their anger, they show you their power, how much of it they have, and how much they've already lost. But when you see someone else's rage clearly, while holding your own in silence, you learn to weaponize what they never meant to give away. Machiavelli understood this reversal. He knew the most strategic move was not to unleash your own fire, but to watch theirs burn uncontrolled. Let them rant. Let them accuse. Let them flail in circles trying to provoke a response you'll never give. Because the moment they expose their anger, they've handed you leverage. Their voice goes up, yours doesn't. Their story gets messy, yours stays still. And in that imbalance, they start to look emotional while you look composed. Weakness, while pretending to be strength, is always more obvious than strength pretending to be still. The key isn't to never feel rage, it's to master the redirection. Make their fury louder than the problem. Make their outburst the story, not the insult that caused it. Because people don't remember what was said, they remember who lost control. Machiavelli taught that the perception of reason is more powerful than truth. So when they yell and you don't, you've already won the room. Not through dominance, but through contrast. Anger makes people justify their behavior. Stillness makes them question it. And when you stay still long enough, they'll start to explain themselves without being asked. They'll start defending things you never accused them of. That's the power of absence. You are not the fire. You are the cold that makes them burn alone. Let their rage make them careless. Let it make them loud, visible, exposed. And when the opportunity comes, don't meet their fire with fire. Use air. Use reflection. Let their own words turn back on them. Because the one who uses their opponent's energy always wins cleaner than the one who tries to outshout it. You don't need to be the storm. You just need to be the sky they scream into. Machiavellian power doesn't come from aggression. It comes from absorption. You take the energy they give and you twist it, elevate it, refine it into something that moves when they least expect. That's what true dominance looks like, not controlling others through force, but letting them ruin themselves while you remain untouched. So the next time you feel rage build in your chest, remember this: it's more useful in your hands than in your voice. Save it, sculpt it, and when the time is right, let theirs speak louder, let theirs speak first, because the loudest one rarely finishes on top, the quietest one does. There's a reason Machiavelli never romanticized anger. He saw it for what it was, not a flaw, but a tool. And like any tool, it either serves you or ruins you. In the hands of the weak, anger is loud, sloppy, predictable. It comes out too fast and aims too low. But in the hands of the strategic, it's something else entirely. It becomes invisible, controlled, tamed into silence until it can be used with surgical precision. That is the final rule. Control your anger or be controlled by it. Because no matter how justified your fury feels, the moment it spills into the open, you lose ownership of it. It becomes a performance, a reaction, a vulnerability on display. And there will always be someone watching someone who knows how to take your fire and use it to light their own ascent. When you react, you signal. When you explode, you simplify. And once you're simple, you're beatable. But if you can hold your anger, cage it, whisper to it in private, then you become something far more dangerous. You become unpredictable. People no longer know what hurts you. They don't know if you even feel it. They can't calculate when you'll strike or if you'll strike at all. That uncertainty builds tension. And tension is power. The man who rages is feared for a moment. The man who never reacts is feared forever. Machiavelli didn't fear emotion, he feared visibility. Because power dies in transparency. When they know your limit, they know how to push you past it. When they see your rage, they measure your breaking point. But when they see nothing, they fear everything. Every silence becomes a question. Every calm moment becomes a warning. That's the world you want to live in. Not where your rage rules you, but where you rule it. Because control doesn't mean absence of feeling. It means dominance over timing. You feel the same things they do, you just don't show it when they expect. You don't burn the bridge while they're watching. You wait. And when the time is right, when no one's looking, you remove what you need, end what must be ended, and disappear without a sound. That's power. That's the difference between being ruled by your anger and using it like a weapon with your name carved in the handle. So remember this: they will try to make you shout, to make you break, to make you bleed publicly. But your silence will haunt them louder than any scream ever could. Control your anger, or be remembered as someone who never did. If this made you colder, smarter, or more powerful, like, subscribe, and share this with someone who gives too much away. And for more Machiavellian strategies, stay sharp. The next rule is already waiting.